Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Must Love Books. Hello, and welcome back to Must Love Books podcast. Today, I am here with returning author Elise Kova, who is here for her latest novel, Dragon Cursed. Hi, Elise. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back. And listeners, it's good to hear or see you again. I hope it's good to hear me again. That felt very Glinda coded. It's good to hear me again.
Yes, absolutely. And I just saw Wicked, so perfect timing on that too.
Staying in the cultural moment, I guess, as it were.
Yes, yes. So Elise is back with a new novel. If you want to listen to a little bit of Elise's first time on Must Love Books podcast, you can check out episode 76. Let's do a tarot reading with Elise Kova for Arcana Academy. So now let's go ahead and we're gonna just dive right in and talk all about Dragon Cursed.
I cannot wait. I am very excited.
So for anyone who is new to this book, how about you just kind of jump right in?
So, Dragon Cursed tells the story of 18-year-old Isola, and she lives in what is a very dire world. There is a nature-destroying scourge that is slowly creeping across the land and destroying all life and magic. And the people believe that it is further spread by the dragons that constantly attack humanity's last surviving city, Vingard. And within Vingard, upon coming of age at 18, everyone enters the tribunal to find out if they are dragon cursed to become one of the monsters that terrorize the city, or if they are not, if they are able then to become full citizens and join the efforts to hunt and kill the dragons and hopefully save the world. Nasola is in particular is special because when she was 12, she actually killed a dragon with magic that was not basically supposed to exist anymore. And that made her be declared as Valor Reborn, humanity's destined savior. But she is pretty sure she's not from the get-go.
And in this novel, there are some themes of being under surveillance and some issues with bodily autonomy, things that I thought were really just interesting and really important to kind of touch on in a fantasy novel.
I think fantasy is such a unique space to explore particularly thorny or challenging topics because it is another world. It is something that removes the reader from our world and potentially any biases that they might have in our world, but can present those same questions that are relevant to how we perceive the real world and move throughout it. And so there is always those things that get wrapped up into fantasy, and there's a lot. There are a lot in Dragon Cursed. And one of the big questions that I started with when I was writing Dragon Cursed was this idea of who controls knowledge and information and what do they do with it when they control it? How do they control it? And why do they control it that way? I also really wanted to explore when in dire situations, do people rise to the occasion or do they fall to maybe their basest, most ugly instincts? And then other themes of bodily autonomy and themes of how far is too far when you're doing it in favor of what is perceived to be the greater good.
I personally thought that this was an extremely just with the times fantasy novel. This is something that I think is very relevant to readers and something that I really related to myself. And I also want to say, the way that you touched on the themes of being surveyed and being under surveillance really gave me this hint of a 1984, but in a fantasy setting vibe. And I thought that was really interesting.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, I would never put myself at the level of 1984, but it's very flattering, certainly, to hear. I forget if it was late in high school or early in college, but I came across the alt architectural concept of the Panopticon by Jeremy Ben. I'm bad at pronouncing names. This is why I make them up. But for anyone who's unfamiliar, the Panopticon is this architectural design where you have this circular kind of outer wall. It's a prison design. And you have in the center is a guard post, and all the prisoners can see the guard post, but within the guard post, the prisoners can't see the guards themselves. And so at any second they know that a guard could be looking at them, but they don't know for sure if a guard is looking at them. And how the concept behind it is how you can control a large population with very little effort because the people's minds are doing the work. Because if you think at any second you are being watched, you act in accordance, even if you aren't actually in that moment being watched. And that's a it's a thought that I've explored in a couple of my books. It appears in The Alchemists of Loom. There's a prison there that is a panopticon design. I think the tribunal that's in Dragon Curse, I wanted it to have that feeling of, people in the walls and people just lurking in the shadows and people just standing in broad daylight, and how, you have that knowledge that someone at any second could be watching you.
Yeah, it's almost like the fear of being watched is even worse than the idea of actually being watched, because you don't know for sure if you're being watched. You don't know what
Exactly.
is being, relayed on to others, what could be a secret spy kind of thing. And I think that's a really just important theme. And we see it in a lot of fantasy as well, but I like to see it as it, kind of expands across different types of fantasy.
Yeah, it's definitely a theme that is creates a lot of tension. Narratively, as an author, it can be fun to play around with from that perspective as well, for sure.
Oh, yeah. So, can you tell us about some of your inspirations or additional inspirations behind Dragon Cursed?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, it's hard. It's always hard to say like kind of where the very first inspiration really comes from. One of if not the first, one of the first was actually Hayao Miyazaki's Nazca of the Valley of the Wind. And really Hayao Miyazaki's filmography in general, because I'm a big fan of his films. I grew up with Studio Ghibli. I have immense respect for him as a storyteller. And one of the things that he does in a lot of his films is explore the concept of man versus nature. And what I really like about those films is that there is not a quote unquote villain. There's not a true individual that is the bad guy. And I love me a good bad guy. Don't get me wrong. I really do. But a lot of my books have a bad guy, like, the big bad evil guy, as they say. And so I really liked the idea of writing a book in which there are many villainous and antagonistic people, but it is the pressures of the situation being placed upon them. Now, that doesn't excuse their actions by any measure, but it does beg the question of, would these people be like this if not for? And sort of these are the perfect situations for evil to arise, but again, the solution, it doesn't end with just killing those people or getting them out of power or whatever else. It ends with fixing the problem. The other thing that I really loved about it was I loved this idea of that problem being nature. And in Nazca, the Valley of the Wind, specifically, it's an ecocide. And I really liked the idea of a dystopian fantasy where you had this sort of utopian-esque world, but that's very far in the past. And now what you're presented with is sort of this remnants of the rotting carcass of that world. So that was kind of where I was at. And of course, I think a lot about the environment and sort of difficult questions that surround that I don't have answers for, and look to people much smarter than me. And then, the next inspiration kind of evolved staying in sort of the anime corner of my brain, because I'm nerdy and I'm really influenced by a lot of the nerdy stuff that I consume. And it was Attack on Titan, but instead of Titans, dragons. And when I kind of had those two components, I was like, okay, this is sort of my seed of inspiration for this story. I wanted to have a nature component. I wanted to have a not necessarily a big bad evil guy, but an antagonistic force. I wanted to do dragons, but I wanted to do them in this very sort of vicious and brutal way, because those are a lot of the dragons that I grew up with. I somehow missed sort of the Aragon era, and I was stuck in my Smaug era. So I play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a dungeon master. And so like the dragons that I throw most often at my players, and therefore I'm thinking about them, are like, how do I wreck my player's day with this dragon? And so I think that's probably where it came from. And there are a lot of fabulous fantasy books out there right now that have dragons and humans coexisting or being friends or companions or whatever else. And I love that there are all of those books and there's space for all of the books to exist. Just for me, I felt like I wanted a story that sort of looked back at dragons as I remember them growing up as a kid, which was much more monstrous. And I didn't see a lot of that in the market. So I was like, okay, that's the angle that I want to take with my dragons.
Yeah, I have to agree that there is basically two kinds of a dragon story, and that is the dragon riders and the dragon slayers. And we have had a huge uptick, probably because of Fourth Wing, in the dragon riders. But I love me a good dragon slayer
Yeah,
novel.
right? Right? I mean,
Like,
and again, there's room for both. You can go
there
from one
is
to the other. That's the
absolutely,
beauty of
uh-huh,
storytelling.
absolutely room for both. And so you mentioned that you are a dungeon master for
I
D&D.
am.
I too am a dungeon master for D&D.
I welcome to the club of the forever DM, I assume, because once you
Yes,
start DMing, that is I actually played as a character like 2 days ago, and it was the first time in maybe about a year and a half that I got to sit at the table as a player, and it was amazing.
my sibling was always the DM, and I always got to play as a character. And now I'm currently doing the DM thing for a couple different groups that are all kind of,
Fun.
they're like family and friends, so they're, a little overlapping in between some of the players. But
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
doing some of it with a few members of the Something Smutty book club from the podcast here. I was the only one with any Dungeons and Dragons experience outside of one of our members played Baldur's Gate.
Which is a
Outside of that,
fabulous game. 10 out of 10. Recommend it to anyone who has not played it.
no, I haven't bought it yet, and
Oh,
I
it's
need to upgrade my
good.
laptop first. And, once I upgrade my laptop, I will be getting it.
I will say Baldur's Gate is like the quintessential at this point. I think everyone goes in thinking they know who's going to be their romance. If you're someone who romances in video games, but everyone
Hmm.
kind of goes in and then I feel like most people it is not the person you think it's going to be.
I will keep that in mind when I start playing because I definitely
You'll
do
have to
the
shoot me an email
romance.
and let me
Oh,
know
I so will.
who wins your romance path.
So we have been playing Dragon of Icespire Peak, which is a beginner level starter campaign from D&D. And since I was the only one with any D&D experience, I actually did create my own character to kind of help guide them and teach them how to play kind of
Oh,
thing.
fun.
So right now I do get to do a little bit of both where I DM and also have a character and have been kind of, finding the balance between the two.
Yeah. Oh, that's a lot of fun. D&D is so much fun. If you're listening to this and you have not played D&D, let this be your sign to find a group and play some D&D because it is
Yes.
it is a good time.
Absolutely. I will actually be sharing some of we have been recording our D&D
Oh,
sessions. So I will
fun.
be sharing some of it here on Must Love Books podcast. So stay tuned. I don't know when exactly, but sometime this spring we'll start releasing some.
Oh, that'll be great. I've actually thought about I have a campaign idea and I've actually thought about writing the sessions following the campaign. I say I have a campaign idea. I have multiple campaigns running right now, but I have a new campaign idea. And I've thought about like, okay, if I'm starting a new campaign, what if I write the sessions as like chapters or a chapter or
Yes.
chapters and post it on my Patreon and let sort of my patrons follow the adventure. I mean, it would be an adjusted adventure because obviously I'm not in every player's head and I'm not going to
Yes.
interrogate all of my friends following to be like, "So please give me insight into the depths of your motivation for this." But yeah, I was like, "Oh, that could be really fun for my Patreon." But I am plagued with the perpetual I have more ideas than I have time for, both in stories and in life.
Yes, that is the never-ending problem. So why don't you go ahead and give your Patreon a little shout out here for anyone who wants to check that out?
Oh yeah, sure. My Patreon is just my name. It's just Elise Kova. Nothing super fancy. I think if you go to patreon.com/Elise Kova, it should take you there. I have a novel that I drafted on there forever ago. I have another novel that I've been working on that I need to get back to. I'm sorry, patrons, if any of you are listening to this. I've been so underwater on deadlines. I like one of the things I started for fun was I started rewriting Air Awakens from Aldrich's point of view, and I have a couple of chapters on that up there. So it really is sort of this weird place of patrons get, sometimes they get free books or sometimes they get really, really discounted physical books. Sometimes they get, discounted merch or free downloadable stuff that they can just print out at home, like printable bookmarks, just for their own enjoyment. And then other times it's little snippets and teasers of stuff I'm working on. And sometimes it is just those ideas where I'm like, hey, I don't have anywhere else for this idea, but here's something from my brain. I hope you enjoy it.
I love that so much. That sounds like such a great and super fun place to be.
Yeah, it's a good little spot, and I'm hoping to do more with it in 2026. Again, miss last words of someone who is very
Yes.
busy.
Yes, that is my goal as well. Must Love Books podcast also has a Patreon.
Oh,
It
wonderful.
is at the time of recording, it's not super active, but I have been putting some things on there. We're going to be putting a bunch of the D&D sessions on there. We've recorded everything, so we're just going to clip them up into, shorter videos and throw those up there as well as with some of the character art people have made for their characters. And we also do like random things like our Stranger Things watch. We watched each of the seasons and recorded a little podcast episode for each season of Stranger Things. So there's a bunch of like different stuff on the Patreon that you won't necessarily see on the podcast.
I will say, and I'm getting us so far off topic right now. I feel like we've been on a tangent and I'm just leading us further into the woods. But I will say, because you mentioned Stranger Things, I have been listening to the Stranger Things season 4 remix of Running Up That Hill while working
Oh
on
my
specific
goodness.
scenes in Arcana Academy 3. So that is a teaser. You heard it here first. If that is a song on my Arcana Academy 3 playlist.
Oh, I love that. And it's such a good remix too.
It's so good. I mean, I love the original. Like Kate Bush is amazing, but
Yes.
like the remix fits perfectly.
Oh, that has me so pumped. So excited for that. So from here, I have seen a little bit of news shared on your Instagram regarding Dragon Curse.
Just one or two things
Just
that
one or
come
two things,
small
you know?
things.
Yeah, yeah, totally small, like nonchalant things. You want to talk about it?
Oh, gosh, it's so surreal to say, and you and I were talking about it just a little bit ago before we started recording. But Dragon Cursed has officially been picked up for film by Amazon MGM Studios, which is very, very surreal to say as an author because it's one of those weird questions that you get asked a lot more than I ever imagined I would. But people really like to ask, like, "Oh, are your books going to be made into a movie?" And it's weird that I get to say yes now. I mean, it is a long, long road to getting a movie made. And there are so many places where the studio, the producers, the talent attached could look at it and go, yeah, we changed our mind. This is actually not the priority we thought it was, or we don't see this going anywhere. And then nothing happens. And so, I don't say that to diminish the excitement, but just to say that I keep my own expectations tempered and I hope readers do as well. But I have had my first call with production and, the initial start of the process has happened and they're very optimistic and try and stay optimistic as well, but just again underscore that it is a very long road. Hopefully readers will stick it out.
I'm personally really excited and just want to give you a huge and official congratulations.
Thank
Wherever
you.
this ends up going down the road, it's such an incredible opportunity, and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am itching to see a big romantasy get made and get on, be it the small screen or the big screen, because I think there is such a market for it. I am part of that market. And whether that's my stuff or my own, I'm sure the studio, if they listen to this, they would be like, no, push your stuff. But I think it's just one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, man, I just want someone to make it happen because I think it could be so good. And I think that the market is ready for it, and we just need Hollywood to believe in that.
So, as we all know, romance is the biggest selling genre in books. And under the romance umbrella, romantasy is the biggest selling subgenre. So, I mean, Hollywood studios have like a built-in audience for adapting romantasy stories for screen, whether it's for streaming or theater.
Absolutely. And I think that, I think that the biggest thing is, and it's sometimes hard to wrap your head around this as like, someone who's in the book world because it is such a loud and wonderful, most of the time, echo chamber. These studios are investing hundreds of millions of dollars to make a fantasy movie because it is not cheap between sets and costume and all the special effects required. And I think that, they are looking at it from the perspective of we don't just need thousands or tens of thousands of people that are going to love this. We need millions and millions and millions of people to love this. So it is just such a different scale and a different calculus. But, no matter what happens, I'm excited to learn about the process because I am not a huge film or TV buff. I feel like I have stumbled into a world. I feel like I've stumbled through the armoire, the closet to Narnia. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
The Narnia of book adaptations.
Yeah, yeah. Hollywood is definitely a Narnia, that is for sure.
Well, it did work out for those kids for the most part. So,
So we'll cross our fingers and
yes,
for the
cross
best.
fingers, knocking on wood.
And I wish I had, like more information to share, but I don't other than it is a thing that is moving forward.
Yes, it is very early on in the process, and as we know, the film industry is notoriously slow. I mean, we think the publishing industry is slow, and that is fairly accurate. But when it comes to especially larger films, like a fantasy series would be, it is like so slow. We're talking, snail slow.
Yeah, I mean it is one of those things where it can take a year or more just to get a script.
Yeah,
And if you're lucky, other things are happening in tandem with the script. You're finding a director to attach to the project, you're finding talent to attach to it, but it doesn't always work out that way.
yeah.
And you just got to be along for the ride and see what happens.
Well, I'm personally excited, and, I hope
Thank you.
that over time we'll be able to hear more about this. I would just love to see this come to fruition as I'm ready for some romantasy on TV.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, when you first came on to Must Have Books podcast, you were here to discuss Arcana Academy, and I did see a release date for book 2.
Yes. Book two, Prince of Swords, will be out July 21st of this year. That is book two of Arcana Academy.
Do you want to share a little bit about book 2?
Book two starts immediately after book one. It starts seconds after book one ends. We pick up right back in the action, and there are a number of reveals that I am particularly excited for readers to get to because it is book two of a trilogy. And I think narratively, a book two needs to answer the questions that were asked in book one, but answer them in ways that create more questions that then are ultimately resolved in the conclusion in book three. And so I got to answer a lot of questions. I got to have a lot of really fun reveals that I've been waiting for since I wrote the initial chapters of book one.
That is very exciting to hear.
Yeah, I'm excited for it to be in readers' hands. It will have a deluxe edition with those gorgeous gilded edges again here in the US. In the UK, I don't know if any editions have been announced yet, but I don't know. There might be some. I don't know.
Well, and just like book 1, the cover is absolutely stunning. The gilded golden edges are such a treat for anyone who loves those colorful edges. I personally love a good golden edge, so I'm excited.
I am too. I cannot wait for it to be in readers' hands. The cover illustrator Kokorina, she does an incredible job on these covers, and she is a delight to work with. She is so passionate about her artwork and about tarot. specifically that really just comes through and really shows in her art. And, to kind of expand on that, the cover illustrator for Dragon Cursed is much the same. Her art is all incredible, and it's the same artist that did the cover for Dragon Curse as did the incredible map that's on the inside. So, I mean, if you want to talk about range, there is some insane range right there.
That is awesome. I love hearing that. So, how about you tell us a little bit about what you've got next?
Oh goodness. 2026 is a busy year for me. I'm very afraid that we're going to get to the end of 2026 and people are going to be like, we are so sick of hearing Elise Kova's name. So Dragon Curse just came out on January 6th. So not even a month yet as of time of recording this. My next release is in April, and that is the re-release of A Deal with the Elf King. My Married to Magic books were picked up by Del Rey, which is the same publisher as Arcana Academy, and they are going to be re-released in new paperbacks with these gorgeous new covers. The original covers, and I love that Del Rey was open to this because I know how beloved the original covers are. They are getting reprinted on the inside in full color. So readers can still appreciate the original covers while, they might be collecting these new books. And those will be coming out throughout 2026 because all of them are written. I am copy editing them all again. So they are going to be re-edited and they are going to include bonus scenes that were previously only available through my newsletter. And so those are going to be coming out throughout the year. And then Prince of Swords is out in the summertime. So I think if you count the republications, I think this year I have 6 or 7 books coming out, but two new ones, and one of them has already come and gone.
That is wonderful. Very busy year indeed.
Yeah, it is. It is good though. It's good to stay busy.
Yes,
And I'm
absolutely.
very lucky because publishing is an industry that, want to be busy in and you don't always have the opportunity to be busy in it. So I'm very lucky to be where I'm at.
Well, Elise, I want to thank you so much for joining me again on Must Love Books podcast. I'm really excited for all of the Dragon Cursed news and want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in today.
Thank you so much. And I am just so excited.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Must Love Books. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon under @Must Love Books Podcast. Thank you and happy reading.